Elon Musk made many big comments about Tesla's humanoid bot Optimus. While we suspected he was toning down his estimates earlier this year, now that his compensation plan has been approved, he's back talking big numbers. He reaffirmed the bot will be the biggest product by far, bigger than cell phones, 8.5 billion cell phones a year, fastest production ever, 1 million unit line at Fremont, 10 million at Texas. He said he doesn't even know where they'll put the 100 million humanoid bot line. For every 1 million robots with a PE of 40, that is $1 trillion market cap. Today, we've got Cern Basher. He's a chartered financial analyst running his own investment advisory firm called BrilliantAdvice, providing wealth management services. Welcome, Cern.
Hi, Herbert. This is the topic that's near and dear to my heart.
I know we call you the bot bull. You're wearing a bot shirt. There was so many new information shared yesterday. So the show we did yesterday covered a lot of that, but this is the only show you wanted to do, bots.
This is the only one that matters long term.
Yes, I know. It does. Okay. Well, let's. Why don't we start with that then? So, what were the key things you heard about the bot that's different than previous statements he's made?
Well, I think he's actually coming back to where he was maybe a year and a half ago.
Okay.
There were some comments and discussions and posts back in the summer of 2024, where we were talking about, tens of billions of robots in the world. Mm-hmm. And it was actually a post where I called him out and I said, "You're off by an order of magnitude" on one of his posts.
Yeah.
And he responded.
Yeah.
Right. So, and then as we went into the fall last year, post-election, and into the first quarter, he really seemed to start toning down his expectations on bots. And of course, there were some personnel changes on the bot team, right? So they went through some challenges, some issues. But now again, he's talking up bots. I think he's excited about where they're at and what they can do with humanoid robots. So for me, that was very refreshing to see him back in that place again.
So there's two parts of that, right? So if one is you thought one comment you made, and I think others said, and I don't agree with this. They say, "Oh, he did not have his compensation plan, and so he wants to tone down the milestones. Now that he has his compensation plan, he's back again boosting it," which is, I don't think is what's happened. I think the other thing you just mentioned is that he came in and he started focusing on humanoid bots. He's repeated several times he's having, like, every Friday night, he has these bot meetings. He did a executive shuffle there. He's focused on it. And I think now he's so I think he had to tone down because there were part shortages. Yeah. Remember that there was a linear actuator issue. Then he needed to create, I think, Tesla's creating their own actuators. I don't think that they're relying on Chinese suppliers. I think that they've decided we're going to build. And so if you're doing that, you need a whole new supply chain just for that one product. Yeah. Manufacture that before you can talk about manufacturing a full humanoid bot. So that's what I think had happened, as opposed to he's trying to position,
Well, the nuance I think I would say when I talk about his compensation plan negotiations, it's not like he was necessarily talking down expectations because he wanted to get more money and make it easier for himself in that way. But I think to the extent he could make it easier for himself to meet the milestones so that he could gain the control of the company that he's seeking. To me, that's kind of the way I would view that. And again, that's not his primary motivation, but he has mentioned that he's not comfortable bringing billions of robots into the world if he's concerned about losing control of Tesla, because this is an army. And if used for the wrong purpose, it would be very detrimental to humanity.
Makes sense. Okay, that makes sense. He wanted to tone down what he's going to accomplish, because if he doesn't win, he's not going to build millions. But now that he's got his compensation plan, he's got 25% plans for him to get 25% voting control. He's ready to actually hit these numbers. Yeah. All right. What are the numbers?
Well, so let's talk big picture first, right? So he talked about increasing the global economy 10x. And then he also said maybe 100x ultimately. So the global economy is about 85 trillion today. Let's call it 100 trillion. Let's round it up to 100 trillion to make these numbers easy. 10xing the global economy would be a $1 quadrillion economy. Yeah. Incredible to 10x that. Okay, so it's a delta of about $900 trillion. Okay, so let's keep that in the back of our mind. Right, and he says there's no obvious limit to how big the economy could be. He also mentioned that money essentially is just effectively energy. we could actually begin to think about pricing everything in terms of the energy cost that goes into making everything, whether it's a product or service. And so this is an interesting thread, I think, for us to kind of work on and pull a little bit over time, is this idea that money is going to evolve to just being essentially energy, right? And this is a whole other discussion, but that's a really powerful thought. So let's talk about some numbers. So if you have a robot that makes $25,000 a year in profit, and that right now would not be a stretch because we think these robots can actually generate annual revenue, let's say, of $100,000 or $90,000, no problem. Yeah. And actually, I've said too, as robots get more capable, they become more valuable. They could actually have more revenue than that. If a robot is able to work 3 shifts at the pace of a human, it's probably worth more than $100,000 per year in revenue. But let's just stick with 100,000 for now, okay? If it makes 25,000, it's only 25% profit margin, net profit margin, okay, which I think is conservative. And if you applied only a PE multiple of 40 to that, for every 1 million robots, you get $1 trillion of market value creation, right? Effectively out of thin air. You're putting something into the world that's never been there before. 1 million of them creates $1 trillion of value. Elon yesterday was talking about 10 million robots. That's 10 trillion. 100 million robots, potentially making 100 million a year. That is 100 trillion of market value
per year.
Per year. And 100 million actually of robots isn't that much in context of an 8 billion or so person planet. You get to 1 billion robots a year, and again, he mentioned that yesterday. That's $1 quadrillion of value generated every year in market value. Now, the idea of Tesla being a 1 quadrillion company sounds insane. I totally agree. But he said that Optimus is effectively a infinite money glitch. And I think this is what he's referring to when he looks at numbers like this. You know, they speak for themselves. All right. Now, of course, as you put out that many robots, you're not going to be making $25,000 a year. You're going to actually be driving the cost of making these and the cost of everything else down. So let's say it's only, 20% of that. Then 1 billion robots generates 5 trillion in revenue and 200 trillion of market value.
200 trillion.
Right.
Okay.
Now, 5 trillion in revenue, that's, on $100 trillion economy, that's only 5%. That's not 10xing the economy yet. Now, of course, you put these bots into the world and they go do work and so on. So it's not just the revenue that Tesla gets that increases GDP, it's the work that the bots do.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But even so, we're still just scratching the surface on its GDP impact.
So what you're doing is you're backtracking statements he's made. And we know that when he's made these statements, he's calculated it. He's figured it out. He's done all this that you're doing. The economy, the size of that, what the impact would be, how many bots, and that's why he comes up with these numbers. He doesn't come up with them out of thin air.
No.
I asked him the question, like, how did you know the 6 billion miles for FSD driven is what's going to be required before you get worldwide regulatory approval? And he said, well, I kind of like estimate, and I just want to be in the right order of magnitude. That's the most important to him. And so like you do the same thing. You're willing to say that it's okay, fine, I'll do 20% of that, but it's still in the same order of magnitude and it's still head scratching. It's still.
Yeah, I thought the question you asked of Elon yesterday actually was very insightful, and thank you for asking that. How did he come up with that 6 billion mile number? Because it seems to be pretty much spot on or in the ballpark, right? We're there now, and here we are with FSD.
6 billion is what it is today.
Now, he said, well, it was actually 10 billion kilometers.
Yes.
Right? And so he said, is it 1 billion kilometers? Is that enough? And he said, no, it didn't feel like that was going to be enough. Is it 10 billion kilometers or is it 100? And he said, no, 100, that's too much. We don't need that much. We should be good with 10.
Yeah.
And that's how we arrived at that number, which turns out to be pretty much spot on. Right?
And that's what you're doing right now.
That's what we're trying to do here is where are we with this, right?
There's several metrics that he shared. The economy, the number of bots per, and then that's where you're piecing together, what does that mean? Is that right? Because otherwise, right?
Yeah.
You figured out you've taken what he said and you're like, bring it down.
Trying to do something similar with this. Yeah. And again, I look at a planet, let's say, of 8 billion people. And Elon mentioned yesterday, every person on the planet is going to want a robot.
He says that
right?
all the time. Yeah.
We already have 8.5 billion cell phones. And he thinks that this is going to be the product that everybody is going to want to have. And of course, it makes sense. Who wouldn't want a robot that can do things for us? It's a no-brainer. Everybody on the world's going to want one.
I want to just add that I think it's confusing when he says everybody will want a humanoid robot.
Mm-hmm.
I think that he's also referred to C3POs, but he also refers to R2D2s. He talks about that all the time.
Yeah.
So I think there's going to be multiple different robot form factors.
Sure.
And I think in that scenario, absolutely, there's going to be a billion of them. Like, half of them will be R2D2, so whatever that means. Like, not a humanoid per se, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's like cell phones. Like, you have a phone, you'll have another thing that is more AI, bot-like, that can actually do things for you. Doesn't have to necessarily be all just humanoids.
Yeah, the thing that's obvious to me is kid-sized robots.
Mm-hmm.
My kids would like to interact with a robot that's their size.
Yeah.
And I think that would be really powerful, really meaningful for them. But no doubt there'll be other form factors, right? There might be bots with wheels and different things. I think that's obvious. But the other thing that Elon said yesterday was, while every individual is going to want one on the planet, so call it 8 billion, we're going to, behind the scenes in industrial, we need another 3 to 5 robots per person to build everything. Right? So he's talking about
multi-billion,
right?
8 times 2.
Yeah, 16, even more. He's talked about 4 times the human population of bots ultimately. Yeah. And again, you get into the quadrillions. It's crazy to start talking about quadrillions, right? And of course, at that point, what does money even mean? Because everything is just produced in abundance. So naturally, you're not going to have, highly unlikely, a company that's a quadrillion-dollar market value.
It's not going to happen, yeah.
Right? We don't need that in order to be successful with Tesla.
So why don't we bring it back to reality, a little bit reality. So what's going to happen next year, 2026, in terms of bot production and market cap, and did your forecast change?
Well, let's just go through the forecast real quick. So I have at the end of 2026 a total bots deployed of 610. Right? That seems like an incredibly low number at this point, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, what was his statement about when his bot's going to start produced? Or did he say 1,000 run rate? What did he say?
Yeah, I don't remember specifically from yesterday, but this was, from comments made earlier this year.
Yeah.
Right. And then I have 2027, only 5,610 bots deployed. Yeah. These seem like crazy low numbers.
The numbers he said yesterday was 1 million unit run rate at Fremont.
No, that's the capacity of the line, not the run rate. Yeah. That's how much the line can produce in terms of annual capacity, but that doesn't tell us how many bots will be produced on that line, next year or the year after.
But anyways, 1 million at Fremont, 10 million at Texas, but that doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean what's going to happen next year, 2 years, 5 years from now. Okay.
Let's be conservative and say they build a 1 million unit line next year in Fremont, and let's say it takes them 2 years to ramp it. So we're into 2028. My 2028 number is 150,000 robots produced.
So it's likely to be, that's going to be low.
I think so. And then 2029, I have 400,000 robots produced. So I think these are incredibly conservative numbers.
I'd still stick with those, but are you thinking, based on when you heard him say, he is now going to ramp that up bigger than that?
I think so.
Wait. The number he's repeated multiple times last several months is 1 million robots by 2030. He said that.
By 2030? Yeah, and that's what I have in my models, 1 million robots in 2030.
Yeah.
And total produced by then of 1.5 million in total. And that gets you to a $6 trillion market value on Optimus using a PE of 100.
2030.
Yeah.
Okay. And then anything he said yesterday make you think that that's actually going to accelerate it?
It sounds like it. He talks about this being the fastest ramp ever.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that. So when he said this is the fastest ramp of any product ever, like you might need to find out the research. Is it cell phones?
Cell phones ramp pretty fast. On a unit basis, cell phones ramp faster than this. So if he's talking about units, then this ramp is too slow that I have modeled here. And by 2035, I've been making 75 million and total bots produced by then of 171 million.
I think that could be it though, right? It could be like, it's not the fastest ramp in the first 5 years. Yeah. It's the fastest ramp by, like, if you're talking 10 years, it's all of a sudden like this,
If you get into the hundreds of millions of bots produced, and again, he mentioned yesterday about getting into a billion bots produced a year. Yeah. So yeah, I think the time frames could still be a little bit stretched here, and that's why I'm trying to stay conservative with my model. I don't need to be too aggressive because in 2035 I have a market value on the bots of $130 trillion. That sounds like an insane, crazy number sitting here today. But again, I just follow the math, and that's using a PE of 50 and a bot making $42 a day in profit, which is not a big number.
What did you say your market cap's again for 2030?
2030 for bots is about 6 trillion.
6 trillion, which is what, three times what it is today.
That's right.
Okay. And then that's 2030 with $1 million.
And then, by the way, the delta the next year, 2031, the market cap goes to 18.6 trillion.
That's
just with the extra production of bots by then.
Yeah.
Making 5 million in that year.
Okay. So you're not going to change your forecast, though, right?
Not right now. I think it remains to be seen. I would like to see sort of the progress towards actually making bots and having them start come off the factory floor. I think there's still too many unknowns about the usefulness of bots at this point. Right? We see them on stage dancing, and that's really cool. Beautiful fluid motion. That's fantastic. But we need to actually see the bots working, right, and get some understanding of the metrics around that before we can really start to build this. But this is a 10-year model. It's happening at some point in this 10-year time frame in a very large way.
Okay. And then what's the current statement he made about when the bot is the Gen 3 is going to be revealed? Still in,
I believe it was first quarter and maybe end of first quarter, something like that.
Yes.
Yep.
Now that hasn't changed, right?
Right.
We saw the hand. The hand was at the shareholder meeting, but he said that that's a Gen 2 hand.
Yeah.
The bots were Gen 2. So they're not going to share what it looks like.
No, not yet. And I wouldn't want them to.
Yeah.
Right. We've got a competitive scene in terms of the bot players. Elon again mentioned yesterday that I think he said there were 3 components, right? And the one that all the other bot makers don't have is Tesla's manufacturing ability. And so even if these other companies have a great bot, they're not going to be able to manufacture at the numbers that we're talking about here.
I mean, you and I have talked this about a lot, but the audience and so many of our friends, they still so concerned about competition. Oh, the Chinese, figure. Oh, that's almost like it's a superficial thing. Like, we want to be first. We want to do the best. What matters is, it doesn't, like, you agree, right? Let's say that there's 2 companies that can do exactly the same number of bots. They will not compete with each other. Let's say by 2030, this Tesla has 1 million robots.
Yeah.
Another company has 1 million robots. 5 other companies have 1 million robots. Doesn't mean they can't sell it. They can't make the money.
That's right.
And then they probably won't butt heads with each other, like competing. Oh, Pepsi will choose this one versus that one, and then all of a sudden Coke won't choose you instead. Like, you probably won't do that, like, until, well, I don't know. My guess is like 30 million. I don't know.
These companies are going to be supply constrained for years, and we're going to have a dynamic where, for example, let's say, just to pick a random thing, Tesla does a deal with Coca-Cola and supplies Coca-Cola with robots. That's going to force Pepsi to respond, because if they don't, now Coca-Cola has a massive economic advantage over their competition. So you almost need multiple bot manufacturers, right? Or if Pepsi's smart, they would also try to do a deal with Tesla. And I've said this years ago: the CEOs of these companies should be calling Elon now and getting their place in line.
Well, we know they are, though, because I've spoken to several CEOs of bot companies, and they told me that every Fortune 50, every Fortune 100 has already called them. This was a year ago, too. So there's no doubt. Yeah. I mean, you're right. If there is a doubt, they should be. They're dumb.
And if I was the CEO of those companies, I'd be trying to get bots in my facilities as training.
Right now.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Okay. Any new numbers, too?
That's really it, I think, on that. It's just the staggering size of the opportunity that is bots. And I'm still trying to square Elon's comment about 10xing or 100xing the economy, GDP, with the numbers that we have here for these projections. Because, I guess the missing piece is Tesla makes money on these bots, and that counts for GDP in terms of the revenue. But then there's actually deploying the bots into the world and having them create further value. Is it a 10x multiplier on GDP for each bot? Is that what we're talking about? And I'll have to give, I think, some deeper thought to that to actually figure out what that might look like.
It's sustainable abundance, right? He repeated that is the new mission, sustainable abundance. Do you think in Elon's mind, of course he wants to make money for Tesla. He's going to sell these bots, make all that money. But do you think he'll pick industries that he wants the bots to work for? Like, all of us are thinking right now, it's going to sell to Tesla. Tesla's going to use it first and foremost, get that leg up to be able to make all those cars and all that you're talking about, to the suppliers of Tesla. But do you think that he would pick certain industries that are most beneficial to humanity? Because you just positioned that they're probably calling him. Like, he has this supply constraint. He has to choose, and got 10 companies call him. Which one am I going to go with first? And then if he picked it, would he do it because it's the best for humanity, but also the most lucrative? Like, he can charge them $200,000, whatever, like that.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. It's a bit like the problem that NVIDIA has faced in terms of how do they allocate to their customers,
Yeah.
right? And I think Jensen, haven't heard anybody complain about how NVIDIA does it, and I don't know how they do it without making everybody mad.
Yeah.
But everybody seems to be pretty happy with what they get from NVIDIA, even though it's not enough.
Yeah.
So Tesla's going to have the same kind of challenge, and how they handle this, I think, will be important. But I would imagine if I was in their shoes, I would want to try to spread this around as much as possible, because you don't really want to be picking favorites. As much as Elon may not want to supply the auto industry, he should. If they come to him and ask for robots. One of the things I noticed in the factory tour yesterday was there are a lot of people in the factory doing work, right? And a lot of the work to me looked like it was pretty straightforward that a bot could do it, right? At one time there was a Model Y and there were 4 people under the car putting in some, screws or bolts or whatever it was, something. A bot could do that all day long. We also saw a lot of people moving stuff around the factory. There were tons of forklifts and little carts going around. You should be able to make all that autonomous. The cars themselves are on autonomous platforms. So you should be able to make everything else that moves in the factory autonomous. So there's incredible opportunity to automate. And so other automakers would probably want the same technology for their factory. And again, I don't think Elon should play favorites there if they come knocking and want an allocation of Optimus at some point. In the early days, I think you have a few key customers, just like they've done with Tesla Semi. Pepsi was kind of the flagship company that it started with. But I think pretty quickly you'll see them sell Semi to hundreds of companies.
What about the idea then that Pepsi was a early adopter of Semi when they be now the early adopter of robots?
It would make sense. There should be some benefits for them for sticking their neck out financially and doing that. Absolutely. Yeah.
Then where would Coke go?
Yeah. And I've said that these companies actually should be giving Tesla money, like as a call option. Like they should be paying for their position in line.
What do you mean?
If you're Pepsi and you want to be first in line, and you can say, well, I've been buying Semi with you, I've been taking this risk and giving all this data and working with your team.
Yeah.
But then if you're another company like Coca-Cola and say, well, okay, that's great what Pepsi did, but I'm willing to give you $5 billion cash up front today to get a better position in line.
Gosh.
Right?
You really think?
Absolutely. It comes down to money.
Whoa.
Now, does Tesla want to play that game? I don't know, but in some sense it makes sense. If you're looking at building a terafab, your own semiconductors, why not let your customers fund that? We've been funding, as FSD beta users, the development of FSD all these years.
That's true.
So this is kind of then on an industrial scale with the robots. These other companies, they're
beta testers,
essentially industrial beta testers of Optimus.
And then you pay for it though.
You pay for it.
Brilliance about Tesla, isn't it? Like,
yeah.
It's like, instead of like, can you please be a beta tester? Please, I'm trying to find beta testers. It's like, no. Who pays me?
Yeah.
I'll give you the chance to be a beta tester.
Right. But it's not that different from like going to a school. People pay to go to schools that are special in some way. Right. You're paying money up front to get an education so you can go out into the world and make money. These companies are paying Tesla up front so they can build a technology that's going to benefit them in the future. It's exactly the same kind of thing. So why wouldn't Tesla take their money? They should, in my opinion. It's like paying for school.
That's a brilliant idea, sir. Now, you have not modeled this, right? Because that means cash comes in before bots are delivered.
Right. No, I have not modeled this. This would be, pure upside. It would certainly improve the economics of their CapEx.
That would be ridiculous.
Yeah.
This is incredible.
Now, Tesla doesn't need this. They can self-fund this just fine.
Yeah.
But again, if I'm the CEO of Coca-Cola and I look at Pepsi having an advantage over me, I would want to do something about that.
Do you think they understand that yet? I mean, like, okay, so let's say you're Pepsi, okay, and versus Coca-Cola, but I don't know how many employees these guys have. Just guessing, 100 million, 100,000? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure about those two companies. Certainly, Walmart's in the million.
Let's take a quick look while we're talking. So what I'm getting at is, okay, but Tesla can only provide 1 million to you and another million to you, but 3 years later.
Yeah.
Because that's the numbers we're talking about next 5 years, right?
Yeah.
Is 1 million robots going to truly impact, a competitive price reduction margin improvement?
Yes, massively.
Yeah, I think you did this.
Yeah.
Didn't you do it? We did a show one time where you did show exactly. Can you remember the?
I don't remember the specifics, but if for example, I looked at Walmart and Target.
Yeah.
and how many bots you would need for Target to get, to double their margin, for example, it wasn't that many. And so that would give them a massive competitive advantage over a company like Walmart, for example, if that's their main competitor. And so to the extent that one company gets a lot of bots and the other company doesn't, it changes the competitive dynamics between those companies in a massive way because labor costs are so high for these companies. Not to mention employee turnover. Walmart has something like 40% or more turnover a year in their workforce. So it's not like they have to lay anybody off to deploy bots. They can just deploy bots as people leave the workforce. Same thing with Amazon, same thing with Kroger and all the grocery stores. Yeah, there's a tremendous opportunity here for those companies.
Pepsi employs 319,000 people worldwide, and Coca-Cola has 700,000 people globally. So you know what, Cern? I'm going to put you to work, dude. I think it's time. Redo that, add companies, and say, okay, if Coca-Cola, Pepsi, you pick a bunch of companies and you say, this is how many bots they would need to buy. And if they have that, what did you say? Margins will double?
Double.
Okay. What will it take Coca-Cola to double the margins? So you would say, here's what the margins are now. Here's how many employees they have now. All they would need to buy is 1 million robots, 10 million robots.
Yeah.
I'd like to know those numbers. And then you go through industries and then...
It's surprisingly little. It doesn't take much. I also did the math a year or two ago now on the impact to Tesla and their margins.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, of course.
And that's the first place
Can
to
you
start.
Please do this again. I've forgotten it. I think we did it we did it very early.
Yeah.
But now the world has changed.
Yeah.
Bots are actually being made. There's a lot of competitors. And then, like we just said earlier in this discussion here, like the audience we're trying to talk to is actually the companies. If their executive team, one of them watches this show and then watches that analysis you did, it might open up their eyes and realize it doesn't take a lot to double margin. And then what would happen if your competitor did it but you didn't?
It's game over.
If a competitor went to any of the bot makers, really, because it's all limited, and then they go, okay, I'm first. When does the other competitor get in? It'll be like 3 years later, 5 years later, maybe, So by that point, it is what you said, game over a bit, right? Because like you can't catch up anymore. It's harder because you get pushed back in the line.
So it's two things. I would say in no uncertain terms that this would be a call option on the survival of a company. If your competition does this and you do not, your company is history. This is how profound robotic labor is going to be, right? And again, I've said this before, this is absolutely a call option on the survival of a company. If these companies do not line up supply, their history, and here's an example, what Tesla's doing with their chips. Tesla's going to have 4 factories in the United States and TSMC and Samsung making chips. They're buying the entire supply of the factory.
They've locked them up.
They've locked them up.
Everything you make, I'm buying it.
And furthermore, they've said that's not enough. We may have to build our own fab. So if you're a competitor to Tesla and you want chips for your cars, where are you going to get them from? This is the same issue that these other companies will face with
same thing with
robots.
NVIDIA, right? Whoever's not buying the NVIDIA GPUs today, you're falling behind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. Now, NVIDIA, I think, has been very fair with their customer base, and I think Tesla will be too. There's no need for Tesla to pick Pepsi over Coke and have Coke fail and Pepsi be the only company.
Yeah.
There's no reason for them to make that choice. So I think they would want to supply the companies as fairly as possible. But I do also think that it's incumbent upon these companies to make sure they've covered themselves, right? If Coca-Cola or Walmart or whoever can do a deal with Tesla and say, hey, I'll cover your CapEx on this, then they should be first in line. Absolutely.
Oh my God. That's gonna blow my mind if it actually happens, sir. This is like crazy talk.
Well,
I mean, I can see the logic, but it's like a customer is gonna pay you ahead of time so they can get in front because it is so impactful to their business.
Right. We see this in the consumer product market. People have paid a bunch of money for the Roadster to be in front of the line. Now, it's taken a few years, and I apologize to those Roadster holders, but it's coming. You'll get your flying car one day.
Yeah.
But it's the same kind of thing at an industrial scale.
Yeah.
And it's even more important because it's not just a fun product. It's the survival of your company is going to depend on it. It's becoming so much clearer to me now in terms of how profound of an impact this will be on every other company.
Yeah, and every company. Okay.
Yeah.
Can you do that project then?
Absolutely.
I think it's a fun one.
Yeah.
Pick a bunch of companies, margins, and what will take them to double the margins.
Yeah. And then, of course, an additional layer on all that is the autonomous transportation from semi, right? And all that behind the scenes. It's not just replacing
I see
employees
that
with
one
bots,
too. Yeah.
right?
If Pepsi and not Coke did autonomous semi, how much money, how much margin improvement would that do, depending on how many they bought? And then because the transportation is like, how you'll tell me how many, what it was, 30% cost, whatever it is. It's like massive. It's like
It's a big number.
labor is probably the biggest, but then there's transportation.
Yeah.
And then by the way, labor and transportation, right? Like that's the drivers and all that. So
That's right.
it'd be interesting to see.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay, this is great. That was fun, Cern. Great.
So we'll hopefully come back with some more detailed numbers.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
All right. See you.
Thanks, Herbert. Thanks for having me.
I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com.